FUTO Kino Corner here, and today I'm joined by Vsauce2, Kevin. Kevin, thanks for joining the FUTO channel.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for that Vsauce introduction. I appreciate it.
And so for anyone who's watching this, I'm sure that everybody watching this video knows what you do on your channel, but if you could just give us like a brief synopsis of the kind of content that you make and how maybe your content has changed a bit over time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It has changed quite a bit. When I first started when I first started with Vsauce, Michael and I were both doing Vsauce 1 and Vsauce 2. I had a couple of shows on Vsauce 1, and Michael had a couple of shows on Vsauce 2, respectively. Eventually, we split up the channels, and he just did predominantly Vsauce. I did predominantly Vsauce 2. In the early days, it was kind of best of the web style of shows. So, Loot was a show where you could find a bunch of wacky things to buy, and Mind Blow is a show where you could learn about the latest in science news. Over the years, I started doing more single topic deep dives, like the history of science fiction or the history of dragons, stuff like that. Then I went through a math phase where for about 3 years, I focused on recreational math games, which was really fun. And then in the last couple of years, I've been really doing these sort of longer form documentary styles that are kind of like the history of sort of different scientific endeavors. Largely due to just following the algorithm. I noticed that the longer videos, people's tastes changed on YouTube, so they did well in the algorithm when people are sitting and watching a longer viewing experience. People just pop on one video and watch it for 40 minutes rather than clicking around. I think that that TikTok really sort of had a big influence on that, where if people wanted quick content, they would go to TikTok. If they wanted longer content, they could sit down there with YouTube. So that's what I've been doing lately is these longer form documentaries, just telling wild stories throughout science that have largely gone unnoticed, for the most part.
Yeah, and when you switched over to these longer form documentaries, you started experiencing some issues that some other history YouTubers and education YouTubers who talk about history, I mean myself included, have encountered. And actually, I think we both got hit around the same time because you did a video about Russian pseudoscience. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Uh,
Trophy Lysenko. Yeah.
yeah, and your video got hit at the same time as my come and see video got hit, or maybe about 2 weeks after, because you posted that and it got age restricted, and and that was right after my come and see video got age restricted. And I remember we were talking to each other, trying to figure out like what the hell was going on. Like both videos are actually fairly tame videos, and talking about history in a very kind of neutral, informative, educational, from a neutral, informative, educational perspective, is not really warranting of something that's like 18 plus. When I think of something being 18 plus, I think pornography, or I think, a movie that might be on the shelf back at my house. But I don't think about videos that could honestly play on something like PBS. I don't think of Ken Burns documentaries as being 18 plus because they cover a war. You know, so what has been your experience with this whole age restriction system?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's funny that you mentioned PBS because the most recent video that I made was age restricted, and it was a topic that was literally discussed in a Nova documentary on PBS. So this topic was perfectly fine for the channel that runs Sesame Street, but apparently it's not fine for anyone under the age of 18 on YouTube, which in and of itself is completely preposterous. The Trofim Lysenko video, that was another example of, yeah, there was nothing graphic in that video. There's no swearing. There's nothing that I would think would be even uncomfortable for someone outside of a seventh grade classroom, okay? No less high school, which, is still within the buffer of 18 and low. It was my first experience with age restriction. I want to first give some context around age restriction on YouTube, though, because I think that unless you are a YouTube creator and you've experienced it, you really have no idea sort of what the ramifications are of having a video age restricted. I don't think there's, and there shouldn't be any sort of general understanding of that because it is kind of like in the weeds and inside baseball. When your video is age restricted, it's basically killed. Uh, it's not going to be served essentially in the algorithm anymore. It's a death sentence for that video for a number of reasons. One is that, well, in order to see it, you have to be logged in to an account that's over the age of 18, or else, you cannot watch it at all. You cannot even see the video unless you are a logged in adult or, a child posing as an adult with a YouTube account. So right there, it really is censored. It's just unviewable. Couple that with the fact that it really isn't just going to be promoted anymore in terms of gaining the impressions from non-subscribers that you really need to carry a video. So age restriction is a really, really big deal. It's not a minor deal. It's a much graver sentence than, say, demonetization, which is sort of a lesser punishment for a video where, okay, we're no longer going to run much in terms of ads on this video. It's not safe for most advertisers. So we're not going to run a whole lot of ads. So your monetization is going to dramatically decrease and suffer. Okay, that's one thing. That's not great. As someone who makes their living off of YouTube and YouTube is my business, it's not great when a video is unable to generate any revenue. It's much worse if no one is able to even see it. So both instances in which I received an age restriction, I censored the video so that I could re-upload it, just to give it an opportunity to actually be viewed by anyone. Now, the process of age restricting, when the hammer comes down from YouTube, is they will give you the vaguest reason for why it was age restricted. They'll use, legalese essentially and weasel terminology to just give you the slightest hint as to why it's inappropriate, which when you're trying to figure out what you did wrong, how you can correct it, how you could course correct in the future and potentially avoid upsetting, the automated systems, you have no guidance whatsoever. So both instances where we then went back and censored some things, it was just a guessing game. It was, okay, I said the word testicles here. Let's just bleep that out. Or I said the word cannibalism here. Let's just bleep that out. Maybe that was the word. I have no idea. There's no way to know. They don't timestamp anything. They recently said they were going to, but in my experience with this recent age restriction, there was no timestamping, which is absurd for a lot of reasons. One is that they know every single word that you say in the video. They have the AI tools. They auto-generate captions. So you would think that but I think that they open themselves up for maybe liability or criticism if they start picking out specific things. They want to keep it vague. But since it's so vague, as a creator, you're just completely in the dark as to what you did wrong and how you could avoid that in the future.
So yeah, about 4 years ago, we saw this hit a lot of history YouTubers. So the Great War Channel got mass demonetized. All hundreds of videos of theirs demonetized and just taken out of the algorithm. And then at the same time, we saw the armchair historian get hit with that as well. And this is when I think it came to the forefront of us kind of more on the education side of thinking like, oh, this isn't just political people. Because before that, you saw it with like political people and the rest of us kind of thought we were safe. Um, but no, it was hitting education channels and this kind of soft censorship. And this is what kind of pisses me off about YouTube is that they, by soft censoring these topics, they're not really allowing for open discussion of relevant and educational topics. It almost feels like they're trying to just suppress history and suppress intelligent discussion. You know, I understand if it's some guy going on denying the Holocaust or something, but I remember there's one YouTuber who got hit because he did a breakdown of uh, rebutting Holocaust deniers, but he essentially got treated as a Holocaust denier um, when in fact he was doing the opposite. And so it's like, oh, I guess on YouTube you just can't talk about that. That thing that we learn about in elementary school and middle school, that's no good for here. Um, and I and we don't really know what's going on. And so I've, you know, looking forward, I'm trying to think like what is what's going to happen in the future, because it just seems like with every new rules that they put in, every new set of rules that they put in, it just kind of makes me less and less want to make videos. Um, I heard on Twitter, I'm not sure how true this is, but I heard on Twitter that saying fuck once in a video is going to get your whole video demonetized. And I don't know how that's going to affect a lot of creators when the rule has been don't say it in the first 8 to 15 seconds. And I don't really curse in my videos, but I think it's going to be a big impact on people's wallets. But really, post adpocalypse, really what it's more about for a lot of creators who are doing this full time isn't so much the ad money, but it's just the reach, because sponsorships are directly linked to the kind of views you get. So, okay, you're not making ad money, but that sponsor says they'll pay you if you hit X number of views. And if you get age restricted or you get demonetized, that's going to hurt your chances of hitting X number of views. And then if you don't do that, you might lose that sponsorship, which the sponsors pay way more than AdSense does. And that's where a lot of us are making our money. And demonetization, age restriction doesn't just affect, oh, YouTube isn't paying us money. It affects everything else. It affects all the sources of income. If you are selling merch, or you're doing this, or you're doing that, that you promote, say in your videos, your video descriptions. Well, if you're not getting that many eyes on your video, then your whole business, all your businesses take a hit. And that's why at FUTO, we've made GrayJ, where actually people can make their own algorithms that sort of counteract maybe YouTube's algorithm to try to, make it so that even if that happens, they'll still see everyone's videos that they want to see. And if they post on something like Patreon, it comes up in the same feed as YouTube. I post the video that I essentially want to make on Patreon, and then I post the kiddie version on YouTube.
YouTube has a kids app. That was why they introduced the kids app. I was there in those offices during the early days of them developing the kids app. The whole point of that was so that there was a kid-friendly version of YouTube. And what bothers me is about the age restriction is like we are cutting out everyone between 13 to 18 with age restriction, who, they're not they're not the demographic for the kids app. And now they're also not the demographic for things like educational historical videos. Like what exactly are we doing here? I want to say that the last video that I did had nothing to do with politics or really history per se. It was a video about a feral child named Jeannie Wiley. And Jeannie was found at, the age of 13, had just lived in a room her whole life, never really saw other people, never saw the world outside of this tiny room that she was trapped in for the first 13 years of her life. which opened up a lot of really interesting scientific questions, particularly about the development of language. You know, she couldn't talk. She had never talked to anyone, and she was on the verge of becoming a teenager. And the question is, well, can we teach a teenager to talk? So there was a lot of intrigue around her case. It all went sideways, and that's the point of the video, is that nobody really did her any favors, and the way that she was treated just kind of got worse from there. But this is the story that was on PBS. This is a story that has nothing to do with any sort of global conflict, warring nations, nothing like that. When the Trofim Lysenko video was age restricted, I think you and I talked about the potential for Russia even being a topic. At the time, we're still, living within a world of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. But that was one of the things that YouTube did flag, was that due to that conflict, discussion around these countries is going to be treated hypersensitively. Well, this story about a feral child has nothing to do with anything remotely controversial. And like I said, it was on PBS. There were a lot of details that I actually omitted that could have been more controversial and graphic about some of the things that she did. And that didn't matter. And then it also didn't matter that I went through and censored every single word that I thought might potentially have triggered the automated flag system, and blur several things that maybe this is a problem. I have no idea. The censored version that I uploaded was also demonetized. It wasn't age restricted, so it didn't get the harshest penalty, but this was also demonetized. And another sort of inside baseball thing that I think is worth mentioning to listeners is that there is a review process. So when the strike comes in, when the demonetization comes in, that is done by an automated process, obviously, because YouTube has a billion hours, a minute a video that's uploaded to their platform. So they have automated systems to scan all this stuff and try to determine whether it's, ad appropriate, et cetera, appropriate to be uploaded at all. Well, the next step is that once the system decides that it's inappropriate, you can request a human review. So, first
Yeah,
of all,
human.
yeah, first of all, let me just say that both of the videos that I had age restricted were over 20 minutes long. I think the Lysenko one might be over 40 minutes long. And somehow the human review process lasted about 8 minutes.
For my come and see video, my human review, I hit like appeal the age restriction, and it was maybe 1 minute later it said no. It was like maybe less than a minute later I immediately got nope, it's age restricted. And then once you appeal it and it goes through this bullshit review process where I'm like nobody was able to watch the video in that amount of time, then you can't appeal it again. It's set. It's like set in stone.
It's totally a farce. It's a farcical, it's a joke. That it's not real. That there is no one reviewing the thing. It's not possible because, like I said, and like you said, it just comes back automatically as no, basically rejected. Yeah, upon further review, we've determined it's not suitable. It's like, I don't even know there must be some sort of legal reason for that sort of pageantry to even exist at all, because it's a phony process. So there is no recourse. The other recourse I think that people are probably aware of is that you can go onto Twitter and you can at Team YouTube and you can talk to someone there, and then they'll, escalate it and they'll look into it. In my experience and from the people that I've talked to, these decisions are never reversed. They're never reversed. And I don't think they have any incentive to reverse them. I think that they're incentivized to just stick with whatever the thing is, because if someone does reverse it, well, now there's a question, I think, on their end as to, hey, why did you reverse this? Right? They're more liable at that point for making that decision, where it's easier to just say, no, you're banned.
One of the other things is my friend who has a channel called Pax Romana. Um, he he has a Twitter account called Daily Roman Updates, and he got hit with complete channel demonetization for reused content. So he was wondering, and he was trying to get through to them, saying like, "Hey, if there's a video of mine that uses reused content, I'll just delete it. I'll just get rid of it. I don't know which video it is." Uh, so he started like unlisting. I think he unlisted and privated like a lot of his videos, and he had to wait 30 days to get to try to get his monetization back. And in the meantime, his videos all stopped getting views after 30 days, or no, after 90 days actually. After 3 months, he requested again, and they still deny. They still deny him. So I think he finally figured out it was like one video that he posted when he first started his channel that was some sort of shit post AI thing, like a 30-second thing. Is the whole reason his channel got demonetized, like fully demonetized and killed in the algorithm. But they wouldn't tell him that. All of his other videos were fine, but they wouldn't tell him that, and that was affecting the reach of all of his videos. And the thing is that it costs money to make videos, and if you're mass demonetized, you're not going to get sponsors because you're just not going to do as well in the algorithm. You have to, I don't know, make your own website and hope that you have the sort of social capital, the clout for people to actually go to your website. I've seen some people move to other websites like Rumble and Odyssey, or just posting exclusively on Patreon. And one of the issues with that is having to go to a different site. It makes it harder for people to actually follow you over, which is why we made Grade Show. You can follow everybody wherever you want on one app, but it's really hard, and it really makes it so that I don't know. It makes it so that like every time I make a video, I'm just thinking, is this gonna get fucked? Like, am I gonna get screwed? And I really did nothing wrong, and I'm never gonna know why why I'm getting screwed. And it's happened a number of times. And what's funny on my channel is that my videos on like Antichrist and Sallow are monetized and are totally fine. But come and see, like, oh yeah, talking about, oh yeah, my Serbian film video is monetized, but Lord forbid I talk about World War II history for a few minutes. So I guess we'll end it on Kevin, if you had any sort of, if there was anything in this sort of system that you would say you wish was different that could be improved, what would you say it is?
The easiest thing would be if they could actually identify even a stretch of a video, like timestamp a stretch. Like that would be, I would think, vague enough to satisfy, whatever vagueness they require for legal reasons, but also giving the creator some sort of idea of what section of a video maybe they had a problem with. Because at the end of the day, the biggest problem, well, there are two big problems. One is everything seems arbitrary, and the other is it's all a mystery.
Yeah.
If everything's arbitrary and it's all a mystery, there's not a lot of hope for the future other than just crossing your fingers and hope it goes well.
Yeah, and this form of soft censorship that they do here, and having everything be a mystery and seem like nonsensical, what it does is it changes just how people talk, and it makes people less likely to sort of talk about a lot of stuff. You're scared. You're saying like, if I'm gonna put 100 hours into this video, oh, I'm gonna have to really sort of sugarcoat everything, and I'm not gonna be able to really be educational about this. I'm not going to be able to tell something that's honest. I'm going to have to really sugarcoat it. Or maybe this whole part of this person's biography that is, it's getting into territory that might just get the whole video killed. So
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just
it's
gonna,
lying through omission. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it makes everybody lie through omission, and I think that that's terrible for the culture. I think it's terrible um, for the platform and for the internet in general. And I think that like these ad agencies, because I know it's a lot of the ad agencies who that YouTube is afraid of, I guess, and they want to make everything as G rated for them as possible. Um, but they need to start treating creators and they need to start treating audiences like adults. That's what I
I
think.
agree. Yep. Good to
Yeah.
end on that.
And everyone go check out Vsauce2 and his latest video. Anyways, this is Digital Defiance on the FUTO channel, and I've been the Kino Corner.